So when I say your priorities are out of order, I'm not saying that you should be working less. For some people, you need to be working as much as you are or more. However, I find that a lot of people who are burnout, they're working on all the wrong things. They're working on all the wrong things. And so it doesn't matter how much more they work, nothing will change.
Welcome to the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast, where you will learn simple solutions to win at work without losing at home. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business by elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl, to procrastinating on your goals and living in overwhelm. And it's time to say hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits so that you can achieve work-life harmony. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast. Let's do this. Well, hey friends, and welcome back to the show. Today is a full circle moment for me. And when I first launched this podcast 4 years ago, I had a list of women that I wanted to bring on the show as guests. And some of them were my peers, some of them were my friends, and some of them were what I saw as the experts in the industry. And some of them were previous coaches of mine. And so today I get to interview one of my previous coaches and mentors. Her name is Kelly Roach. And I have watched her brand evolve over the last 3 years. And God's timing is just so perfect, right? He's never late. He may not be early, but he's never late. And the timing of her coming on this show, where she's at in her business and the things that she's talking about more, it's just been really, really inspiring. And so I'm so excited for you to listen to this conversation. One of the things that attracted me to Kelly, you're gonna hear us talk about that, what initially drew me to her and her services and all the things that I learned from her. But let me tell you a little bit about Kelly first. So she's one of the only female founders in the online space to build her company from 0 to 8 figures with 0 debt, investors, or outside funding. She is a former NFL cheerleader and Fortune 500 executive turned 8-figure entrepreneur, empowering thousands around the globe to achieve financial and lifestyle freedom through entrepreneurship. Kelly is a multi-international best-selling author, top 20 podcast host, and philanthropist who has been featured in major media such as ABC, NBC, Fox, and Forbes, as well as the recipient of prestigious awards as number 287 on the Inc. 5000 list, the Stevie Awards Women of the Year, Titan CEO of the Year, and Inc.'s Best in Business. I mean, she walks the walk, talks the talk, and I love that we get to talk about her faith and we get to talk about what God has been doing in her life and how do you have a faith-filled family first business. Y'all know that's what we're about over here on this podcast. So without further ado, let's just dive in. Well, hey friends, and welcome back to Life Coaching for Mompreneurs. Today is super special to me. I was just telling Kelly before we hit record that I'm fangirling a little bit. And so Kelly was my coach, about 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember when I first launched this podcast that you were one of the people that was on my list to have as a guest. So thank you so much, Kelly, for taking the time to come on the show.
I am so excited to be here, and I love this full circle moment.
It is. And interesting. I was on a podcast, I guess, last week, and same thing. The girl was like, you were on my list to be on a podcast, and it just really made me feel special. So I just want you to know it's really a special moment for me.
I love that.
Career. So thanks so much for being on here. So for those people who are listening that aren't familiar with who Kelly Roach is, which to me is like, where have you been if you don't know who Kelly Roach is? But just in case, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the work that you're doing today.
For sure. Great. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a wife and mom. I've been with my husband for 18 years and my daughter just turned 11 yesterday. So special family time. And I am a Christian and, trying to live my life in the greatest congruence with, what God will have for me. And as a business builder, I came from the Fortune 500 world. So worked my way up the corporate ladder, was promoted 7 times in 8 years, built record-breaking sales teams, led through the big crash in '08 and '09, and really learned about innovation and true leadership and, how to do business turnarounds and all of that. And then, in 2012, I started my first company, took that company to 8 figures, and then I built 5 other companies. And now I have a portfolio of businesses in the online space. But basically, my obsession is helping people build faith and family first empire. So I love to help people really understand the fastest, most efficient way to achieve rapid business growth, but to do it while keeping first and putting first the most important things in life, which I think are faith and family.
Yeah, I love that. And I will tell you, one of the first things that really attracted me to you is I'll never forget watching you do a Facebook Live. And Madison, right? That's your daughter's name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you were by yourself, and then all of a sudden Madison was on the Facebook Live with
Yep.
us, and you just handled it with such grace and just like,
Yeah.
oh, she's just gonna be a part of the live today. And I had
Yeah.
never experienced that. I'm sure you do this too. Like we put people on this pedestal, and we like they're super professional, and we forget that they're moms
Yeah.
first. Right. And I
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
love that you brought her in, and it wasn't just a one-time thing, y'all. Like it was just what happened some nights. And
Oh,
in the
yeah.
middle of your life, she would just come
Yeah.
in and take and be a part of it. And it just was
Yeah.
such a heartwarming thing for me at that time in my life because I do believe in faith-filled and family-first businesses.
Yeah.
And it's not always the common thing you see.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's actually why I did it, because I
Yeah.
had come from the corporate world, obviously, where there's these like very big walls and it's like so different.
Mhm.
And I was like, listen, if I'm gonna do this entrepreneurship thing, I'm doing this because I want to build a life and I want to, really live the values of what I teach. And I want my daughter to always be comfortable and confident to come to me when she needs me and be with me when she can. But more importantly, like that is the example that I want to set for other women, that we should embrace our roles as wives and mothers and creators. And it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
you're talking about the early days. She started coming on my lives like when she was a baby. Right. And then she was coming in, she was doing gymnastics in my
Yes.
office. And now she comes on stage with me. I just did an
Yeah.
event a week and a half ago and she was on stage with me. She came up, she had the mic, she introduced herself, she asked questions. She's coming with me to a business event next week. And I see the person that she's becoming because of my availability to bring her in
Yeah.
versus to try to create this perception of perfection.
Right.
And I think for a lot of people, and I think it really speaks to it's a bigger conversation because one, it's having the faith and trust that you can be yourself
Yeah.
and you don't need to be perfect in order to build a successful business. I think that's a
Right.
huge piece of it. But also, and I don't know if you know this because it's been a little while since we've connected, but I'm homeschooling Madison now. Me and my husband are doing that
Okay.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that has just been the most immense blessing ever. I can't even, but I think it's also just, I think we're at this very interesting evolution in time, right? Where I think that a lot of people have seen what happens when you pursue success at all costs.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I hope that I'm trying to initiate a lot more conversations in the entrepreneurial world about embracing our roles as leaders of our families
Mhm.
and leaders of our children
Mhm.
and proponents of the faith, and that we can still build successful businesses. I think
Right.
so many people feel like these things are in competition or can't coexist, but they can,
Right. It's a both and I do think we try to like compartmentalize the two,
Yeah.
and that can create a lot of hustle. It can
Yeah.
create a lot of misalignment, right? Of
Yeah.
like you said, who you're showing up to
Yeah.
be, this persona that you think you should have as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, especially as a female entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I just love like, and I even though I haven't been like in directly in your influence in a couple of
Yeah.
years, I've watched the evolution. I've
Yeah.
watched you talk more about your faith. And that's been so
Yeah.
inspiring to see that. And I always
Yeah.
knew you were family first because, like I said, I saw her in
Yeah.
your,
Yeah.
in your lives, and she was very much. And I've loved watching her grow. And I can't believe she's 11. That just is
I know.
amazing. How
I
fast
know.
time goes. But talk a little bit about for the mompreneurs that are listening that really do feel torn between building the business and having time for their family and this both and concept that you're talking about, like how does that play out for you practically on a daily basis?
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I think that you have to be extremely calculated because you have to decide what sacrifices are and aren't worth it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll be specific about that. When I was starting my business, I was still working my corporate job. I was the breadwinner for our family. Billy and I had decided that we did not want Madison in daycare. That was something that was really important to both of us. And so we
Yeah.
made the decision that he was going to be home.
Mhm.
And so I was working full time. I was building the business. And so I made a very calculated sacrifice and decision that I was going to wake up at 5 in the morning and work before I went to work. And I was going to work after work. And I was going to do all these things because I knew that was my bridge
Right.
to where we are today. Right. So that I could be home. He could be home. We have family freedom, all of these things. So it's a calculated sacrifice. But
Mhm.
on the flip side, you know, I decided not to. Probably the greatest gift that I have is as a speaker, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
thing that comes naturally for me is speaking and teaching and taking complex things and making them simple. Not pursued a speaking career at all.
Right.
And I've done that very intentionally because I decided that I do not want that time away from my family.
Yeah.
And so since 2012,
Mhm.
you could probably count on one hand the number of times that I have left my family to go to a business conference, to go to a speaking engagement, any of those things. And I do run a lot of my own events and I bring Madison with me.
Right.
And so that was a calculated sacrifice for my career. If
Mhm.
if I had spent the last 10 years getting on big stages, my personal brand would be 10 times the size that it is today.
Right.
I
Right.
calculated the cost of what that would do to my relationship with my husband and my daughter. And I said, I don't care. It's not worth it. And I
Right.
look back now and I have zero regret,
Right. Yeah.
zero,
Yeah.
zero regret. If I had to do it all over again,
Mhm.
wouldn't change a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I see my relationship with my daughter and my husband. So that's what I mean about being calculated. I think what happens a lot is people, one, don't understand the price that dreams cost
Yeah.
and they don't calculate the costs and then they live their life very frustrated and
Mhm.
very disappointed because they didn't calculate how much the dream was going to cost and prepare themselves to pay it. That's
Mhm.
not a bad thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think being very calculated in knowing what matters to you and what your order of priorities are. And
Yeah.
what I always say to women especially, but men too. I work with women and men and I love working with women and men is that you will never look back on your life and regret that your business grew slower because you were focused on your family.
True.
You
Yeah.
just won't. You
Yeah.
just won't.
Yeah.
And I am a living testament to that. And I've had some amazing successes. My first company I took to 8 figures. We were on the Inc. 5,000 list multiple times. I have 6 companies now. Like we've done all the things, but
Right.
there were certain boundaries that I set that I just was not willing to cross. There was no amount of popularity or visibility or fame or growth that was willing to cause me to
Yeah.
change those things. And I'm not saying for anyone listening that you would make the same decisions I'm making. What I'm saying is know what things in your life that you're willing to pay the price for
Yeah. Yeah.
and be really really clear
Mhm.
on what things you are willing to sacrifice and what things you aren't willing to sacrifice and get clear on what the price that you're going to pay is going to be. Because
Yeah.
if you do that, you will make very discerning decisions
Mhm.
and you'll make the right ones for you and your family.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that hurts women is when they have like young children or they have like other things that are related to their family that they're working through or that they have going on, that they're comparing themselves. When I look at the majority of people that are big voices in the online space in particular, many have had divorces,
Mhm.
many don't have young children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Many of them, if you peel beneath the
Right.
surface, you don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
be so discerning
Mhm.
when you're comparing yourself. And
Mhm.
you should, and that's the thing that I think kills everything
Yeah.
is the moment that we start comparing ourselves. You have to know what matters to you. What was the most important thing in my life was my relationship with God, my husband, and my daughter. Period. End of story.
Right.
Every single decision that I've made
Mm.
has gone back to that. So if
Yeah.
that's what I say, if you know what your priorities are, pick your sacrifices, commit 100% to them, and be willing to do what it takes. So for me, that meant waking up at 5 a.m. And for 20 years, I was in the 5 a.m. club, and I was
Right.
working in the morning and I was working at night, and it all paid off. And I was willing to pay the price because I knew where I would be sitting today, which is
Right.
exactly where I want to be. So that was an example of saying yes to paying the price, whereas going out and speaking was an example of saying no to paying the price.
Mhm.
And those are kind of what those two thought processes look like for me. I don't know if that's helpful, but I'm trying to be
Yeah.
specific so people can think about it and what that might be for them.
No, it's great because I do find that's what most people, women, I mean, not just women, men too, but I work mostly with women, and it is this like confusion, right?
Yes.
And they're just not
Yes.
clear on what is priority. So everything feels like a priority. And then there's so much comparison, there's so much guilt, there's so much
Yes.
just, I heard someone say in one of the devotionals that I do, and she said, comparison like cripples your calling
Oh my gosh.
so
Yes.
much and it like stifles your confidence. And so like if you can just get really clear, like Kelly is saying, like what is the life you're trying to design,
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
create? What's God calling you to, not what you see everyone else doing, because like you said, we're looking at the highlight reel of everyone else. We're not
Yeah.
seeing
You have no
behind the
idea.
scenes struggle,
Yeah.
even from a like you and I perspective, like they see where we are now, they don't see the work that
Yeah.
happened in the dark, right? And
Yeah.
like building the root system to create
Yeah.
the root system, like they don't
Yeah.
see that. But
Yeah.
sometimes we just are so big at comparing ourselves, our behind
Yeah.
the scenes to other people's highlight reel. And maybe that's not even the highlight reel that you want. That might not be the life
Yes.
business that you want. So you have
Yes.
to get clear. It's like if you're not, the target keeps moving.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
your brain's confused and you're like, what am I supposed to be doing today in my
Yeah.
business?
Yeah. And that's a point too, is like, what is enough for you?
Yes.
Right. And everybody has a different enough point, but I think a lot of people try to push past their own enough point
Mm.
because of something that someone else is doing.
Right.
And I think a lot of burnout happens from misalignment.
Me too.
It's not necessarily the physicality. What we're doing is not physically demanding,
Right.
but the mental anguish of living a life that's not for you. I
Hmm.
mean, that just kills your soul.
Right.
It just kills
Right.
your soul. But you have to be brave enough to be walking your own path and to be accountable to an audience of one. That's what I say all the time is like the question that we have to ask every morning is, God, where are you calling me?
Right.
Where are you calling me? Where are you asking me to step up in this life that you've given me? What are you looking for me to do with the gifts that you've given me? And I guarantee you're going to get a really different answer than you're going to get if you wake up and start scrolling on Instagram and you're like, what do I need to focus on today?
Right.
I need to have prettier pictures. I need to have better, more fun, stories to post. I need this. I need to be on a private jet. I need that. I need that. That's not going to be the same answer as if you're asking God, why did you give me these gifts that you gave me?
Right.
What do you
Right.
want me to do with these gifts today?
Right.
Okay. And I'm not saying like I love making money. I make millions of dollars. I love making money. I'm not misrepresenting the happiness and enjoyment that comes with success.
True. Right.
But that's a little piece of the puzzle. And what I found is many times people compromise all the things that will actually bring you joy in pursuit of the success just to find out that you get the success, but you lost all the things that mattered. And now you're completely miserable in your life
Yeah.
because you made the wrong sacrifice. And that's why I talked about that earlier. You have to know what the right sacrifices are in your life. And when you get crystal clear on that, every decision is so easy.
Yeah.
Every decision is so easy,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. You spend less time in the mind drama,
Yeah,
of trying to figure out what that next step is. And I do think you're
exactly.
right. And all of this requires a slowdown.
Mhm.
And I was just talking this morning in my Bible study just about how busyness is a tool of the enemy, right? And we just get
Yes.
so busy and you're
Yes.
busy doing, and it's like, are you even hustling or working hard for the right things? Because you haven't
Yep.
even slowed down long enough to figure out what am I willing to sacrifice here?
Yep.
What is the cost that I'm really willing to
Yeah.
do? And so that requires a slowdown.
Yeah.
You and I've heard it slow down to speed up, but it really is the truth.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
So you mentioned burnout, and it is something that I talk about on the podcast. I always like to ask my guests if you've experienced burnout. If you have, how did it present itself to you? For some people, it's like lack of motivation, lack of inspiration. Sometimes it's a very
Mhm.
physical thing that people feel when they're in burnout, but it is, I mean, it's a huge problem. And it's almost like we have accepted that this is the way entrepreneurship is we're supposed to live in a constant state of burnout. And
Yeah.
I would love to hear
Oh,
from you, like, what have you experienced with burnout?
yeah.
And then how have you worked your way out of it when you find yourself in those moments? Hey, friend, let's talk. It's time to book your clarity call. We are going to spend 1 full hour focused on you. A clarity call isn't about pressure, it's about possibilities. It's about you. You having a space to talk through what's on your heart and mind, you walking away with a clear vision and practical next steps, and you feeling confident in what's next and how to get there. You don't need to have it all figured out. That's my job. All you need to do is show up, and we'll figure it out together. This is the best hour you can invest in yourself right now. Not in 6 months from now, not next month, right now. And don't just take my word for it. Here's what one of my coaching clients had to say after working together.
Working with Martine has been such a blessing to not only my business, but to my personal life as well. I went from lacking confidence to being able to stand tall and proud of my work and life.
That transformation, it starts with one conversation. It's time to stop spinning your wheels and start making real progress. So head right now to martinewilliams.com or in the show notes and grab your private clarity call spot on my calendar before they're gone. And since I personally monitor my inbox, if you don't see a time slot that fits your calendar, just send me an email at martinewilliams.com with free times that do work, and I will make it work for you. All right, friend, let's get back to the show.
Well, I would say like burnout is not normal, necessary, or an ongoing part of entrepreneurship. I think it's really important for everyone to hear that because
Mhm.
if you're feeling that, priorities are out of order and something is wrong. And
Yeah.
when I say priorities are out of order, there might be people sitting here today that it is a top priority to grow your business bigger, faster right now. And that's very important for your family.
Mhm.
So when I say your priorities are out of order, I'm not saying that you should be working less. For some people, you need to be working as much as you are or more. However, I find that a lot of people who are burnout, they're working on all the wrong things. They're
Mhm.
working on all the wrong things. And so it doesn't matter how much more they work, nothing will change.
Right.
And that's a lot of what I help people with is really identifying and understanding what are the 3 to 5 things that are going to be the dominoes that change your whole business and your whole life. Forget the other 800 things that you're trying to do. There's only a certain handful of things that are going to be the needle movers that actually create exponential growth in your business that systematically done on a daily basis are going to create those big growth spurts, right? So
Right.
coming back to your question about burnout, again, I just want to say it's not normal.
Mhm.
I'm not saying we never experience it. There's probably 2 big times in my life that I experienced burnout. One was when I needed to leave corporate. And I
Mhm.
just was like, I'm over this. Like my soul
Yeah.
is dying,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily burnout so much as it was God was really calling me to do something different. The other big time, I was sued by one of the major media companies for using the word entrepreneur. Probably a lot of people know that. They've been doing this for about 20 years,
Okay.
and they go after names that they see start growing and growing that have the word entrepreneur in their brand.
Wow.
And when that happened to me, I mean, it turned my whole life upside down. I lost clients, I lost staff. I had to spend thousands and thousands of hours and time and money. It was a 2 year process actually, and it was definitely like one of the worst things I've ever gone through in my life. And I definitely experienced burnout at that time because I was not sleeping. I was not able to like function at a high level from a cognitive standpoint because the stress was so high, and what's really interesting, what I learned from that situation was one, I was in a position where, I mean, they said, we will put 6 lawyers on this and we're willing to spend millions of dollars on this case. And they're like, we will take you out of business or you will change your name. So they basically like legally blackmailed me.
Right.
And it was one of the first situations in my life where I couldn't outwork it.
Mhm.
Nothing I could do. I could not work it. There was no amount of work I could do. right? Because
Right.
people like
Yeah.
me, I'm just like, oh, well, we'll just do whatever it takes, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there was nothing I could do. And that was a true moment of surrender to God. And when I really, really realized that it was my faith that carried me through,
Yeah.
and that the only reason that I got through that situation was my faith. My faith was
Yeah.
so strong that even though I was like, oh my gosh, my whole empire that I've built could just be wiped away and I'm gonna have to start over from nothing. That didn't happen, thank God. But so that was definitely a period of burnout for me. And it was, again, God, because God makes us really uncomfortable when we won't come to the right conclusion on our own.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So when it was my faith, when it was my faith that got me through that, and I couldn't outwork it, and there was nothing I could do. And
Mhm.
when I realized that my identity was not tied to my business, my identity was not, I was still a happy person, even though I was completely devastated, burnout, demolished emotionally, physically, mentally, with everything happening with the business. I was like, that's destroying me and I'm still happy. And the thing that sits in the middle of that is faith. And that is when I shifted my whole message, my whole business, my whole everything to start
Yeah.
talking about faith and entrepreneurship, because it was when the light bulb went off for me that the reason why so many businesses are closing and so many business owners are burnt out is that their faith life, the
Mhm.
flame has gone out on their faith life, whether they never had it or whether it's just not
Yeah.
a big part. And
Yeah.
so I would say to anyone listening that if burnout is something that you're suffering right now, that it's not normal, it doesn't last forever, you will get out of it, it's going to be okay. And
Mhm.
to ask yourself a better question about the message that your heart, your soul, that God is sending to you about the redirect of your action, your energy, or your behavior as
Mhm.
to why you're feeling that way. Because you're not feeling that way because you're overworked, because quite frankly, none of us are overworked. Okay. Like I say this all the time. People 2 generations ago, they worked in factories. It was 120 degrees. There was no air conditioning.
Right.
It was physically so demanding, right? We're not that tired. We're okay.
Right.
Like we can type on our phones. Like we're all
Right.
gonna be okay,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
when we're burnout, it's something bigger, it's something deeper, and it's something that we need to explore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's prompting, right? Like
Yeah.
when I think
Yeah.
back to my seasons of burnout and even just recently 3 years ago when, I had built a very successful business in direct sales for 16 years. And then one day the Lord was just like, you're done. And I'm like, this
Mm-hmm.
makes no sense on paper. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Why
Yeah.
all the things that used to bring me joy in business were no longer
Yeah.
there anymore? And it
Yeah.
was a pivotal moment where he was like,
Yeah.
I've used that journey, I've used that, and now
Yeah.
that assignment is closed. I have a new assignment for you. Your purpose is still the same. I'm just putting it in a different vehicle. And so it was just really a defining moment for me too. And as you were talking, I'm like, that was the moment for her. That was when your faith became more a part of, it wasn't that you didn't have it before, but you're like, when it came down to it, it was all of this storm was happening over here, but what
Yeah.
you were anchored to is your faith. And
Yeah.
it's a missing element in a lot of people's businesses. So I'm
Yeah.
just so thankful that not that you went through that, but
Yeah.
that God's using it, right? He's
Yeah.
using it for
Absolutely.
your good and
Yeah.
his glory. And that's just
Yeah.
truly, truly amazing.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we've been talking about too is just the mindsets that are essential. Also, like the mindset of what are you willing to sacrifice? The mindset of it's a both and being an entrepreneur and being, the mom or the wife. So tell me,
Yeah.
what are some of your like tried and true like mindsets that you or values that you really come back to when you're thinking about a faith-filled and family first? Because I do think it starts with a mindset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's just that God is abundance and opportunity is everywhere.
Mm,
And I think a lot of what kills businesses and kills business growth is when business owners aren't getting the results that they want. And then they are in a scarcity mindset. And
yes.
then from there, things just kind of go into a downward spiral. And sometimes it's really hard to recover from that. And
Mhm.
so to me, faith is abundance and faith is also accountability.
Mhm.
And, I love the St. Augustine phrase, work like it all depends on you, pray like it all depends on God.
Right.
And, that's kind of like my life philosophy,
Right.
right? And I think, yeah, so I think those are some of the really, really key things.
Yeah. Two things that I remember from the time where I was really working closer with you was when everybody zigs, you zag. So
Mm-hmm.
I always loved that. That just, again, like stand
Yeah.
out in the person that God has created you to be. You don't have to follow the
Mm-hmm.
current.
Yeah.
And then the other one was from one of your live events, and you said, "Are you operating as the person your dreams require?"
Mm-hmm.
And that has stuck with me for both of those,
Yeah.
have stuck with me all of these years. And when I'm looking at my goals and looking at the things I want to accomplish, and maybe I am feeling a little tired or disconnected from it a little bit, I'm thinking again that accountability piece that you just talked about, like, am I actually operating as the person that it's going to require for that dream? Like that's
Yeah.
discerning, that's being honest with yourself. If
Yeah.
not, what needs to change, the dream or how I'm showing up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
that just really stuck with me. I don't know if you still say either of
I still talk about all those things all the time. I just got off a phone last night with the president of a couple of my companies, and I was having the conversation about a zig that we're about to do because everybody else is zagging. I mean, it's been the
yeah,
core principle of everything that we've done, and that is a faith principle.
yeah,
That is the ability to have the courage to
mhm,
follow your instincts, to trust your gut, to trust where you're being called, even when it's the opposite of what everyone else is doing. It's the difference between being a leader and a follower. And I
yeah,
think for me, the reason why my brand has been able to grow for over 10 years now and like keep rising and keep growing, even though I've gone through all the stuff, I've gone through all the things that everybody goes through as they grow, is that I still have that faith and that trust and that confidence. And I'm willing to step out of line. I'm willing to be the one that does things differently. I'm willing to do things the opposite of my peers, my competitors in the industry. And the being the person that your dreams require, I mean, that's just general life principle. I talk about it all the time because
yeah,
when I look at people that are frustrated at their position in business, frustrated at their position in life, it takes me about 30 seconds to ask a couple questions about what they're doing. And it's apparent why they have the results that they have. And
yeah,
I think for us, asking ourselves that question is so important because we are really good at justifying our story about why we feel that we should be further along than we are because of how
right,
hard we're working.
yeah, yeah,
But working hard in the wrong way and on the wrong things is never going to get you to your dreams. And a lot of people work hard on the wrong things because subconsciously they want to avoid the things that make them uncomfortable, that are actually the things that are going to get them to their goals. And I've been coaching a lot of people for a really long time. I've, in the coaching and consulting industry since 2012.
right.
So interfacing with thousands and thousands of people. And that is absolutely like a human behavior trait of avoidance that is the reason why we don't achieve our dreams, right?
Right,
And the best example is health and wellness, right?
right.
Weight loss, multi-billion-dollar industry. We have an obsession with it. I mean, literally, you just need to exercise and eat healthy. It costs us nothing.
It's so simple, right? It really is so
So
simple.
you want to talk about being the person that your dreams require. People would rather go get surgeries and medications and work with 6 different wellness consultants and, go to doctors and, do whatever the fad of the week is. And it goes on and on and on and on. What is that? That's avoidance behavior.
Mhm.
That's avoidance of demonstrating self-control with what we put in our bodies.
Right,
Demonstrating self-control. Actually, it's funny. I just got done a workout. I was sweating my butt off before I got on the camera with you. And I work out with a trainer and I do it in between my sessions and I just need to make it happen. Like I'm
right.
busy, I'm
Yeah,
homeschooling my daughter, I have 6 companies, I have a family and a life. And so I just got to get it in. And I could easily, so easily make the excuse that I don't have time because I really don't have time. I make the time.
right. Yeah, yeah. You
I
don't have the
make the
time, you make the
time
time. Yeah,
because my longevity counts on it. My
mhm,
ability to be a good parent and wife depends on my ability to be healthy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's what the sacrifice, calculating the sacrifice, right? Because
Mhm.
I could sacrifice working out and that's going to cut years off my life.
Right.
Or I could sacrifice and make the time to work out and be sweaty and gross when I get on a podcast interview. But then I know that I'm building my longevity to be a
Yeah,
great wife and a great mom and to be able to fulfill my calling in the world. to
Yeah.
sacrifice one way or sacrifice the other. It's just deciding which sacrifice we're going to make.
Right. It's the concept of choosing your heart, right?
Yep.
Both are hard.
Yep.
So
Yep.
living with, chronic disease and not having the energy and all the
Yep.
things that comes with an unhealthy
Exactly.
lifestyle, that's hard too. But exercising and creating
Yep.
the time, and you're already over, your schedule, creating
Yep.
that time is also hard. So you just got to choose
Yep.
your heart. That comes back
Choose
to,
your heart.
and who is the person that it's going to require to
Yeah.
achieve those dreams. It's always the who
Yeah.
before the how. And I think that can't be talked about enough.
Yep.
It's identity and who are you becoming? Who do you need to become to achieve
Yeah.
what you want to achieve?
Yeah.
So I have so many questions, but I want to end with just when I first came into some of your teaching, it was the live launch method. And I have seen, again, just from the outside looking in, not even just at you, but just online businesses in general, is that still a thing? And if it is, how has it changed over these
Yeah.
last few years? That's how I first learned live launching was through
Yeah.
it. It was a 5-day challenge and, it was a 10-day process or a 12-day process. I can't
Yeah.
remember now, but it was a process. And so
Yeah.
I'd love to hear, because I feel like you're the expert in this. So
Thank
I would
you.
love to know where you're at with that and what are you finding
Yes.
is most successful right now? So
Oh,
here's a little bit to business.
you're asking me a final question that needs to be a whole episode. Maybe I'll come back and talk about it. So to answer your question in a clear way. So live launch is still very much a thing. I use it across four of my 6 companies. And I'm recording a new 2025 audiobook of the updated
Awesome.
live launch
Okay.
because there have been a lot of changes. The market has shifted. The way people buy has shifted. We're in a trust recession. Buyer mentality is different. People have less disposable income. The buying cycle is slower. So we've had to make a lot of accommodations to be able to take a model, which what is the live launch? It's basically just a scalable sales model. So it's how you sell one to many, right?
Yep.
We use about 14 different strategies for customer acquisition in my companies. Live launch still outperforms 10 to 1 everything else. So we continue to iterate and use that. But what I would say is, when I started teaching live launch, I think that was in 2018, I want to say. I think it was 2018. The market was such that live launch performed really well, cold to close, just literally like cold traffic, live launch, 9 days done. And you could do $1 million launch, all high ticket sales, people that didn't even know your name before they came in.
Right.
That's not the market today. I teach a lot now about using trust building offers to build a pool of an audience that's already paying you. And then basically using your live launch to upsell people into your mid ticket and your high ticket. I also teach a lot about, the buying cycle shifting to where people many times are going to come through 2 or 3 of your launches before they buy. So understanding how to concierge people from launch to launch has become really, really important. So there's a lot of changes, but I guess the best way to think about it is, when you're in an expanding economy, you're basically just capturing new leads and new sales coming in. When you're in a contracting economy, you're trying to grow market share, which means that you have to focus more internally on building relationships with the people that are already in your circle of influence. So even for us, we're rotating now our launches where we'll do one launch that's almost 100% organic so that we're only focusing on the people that are already in our inner circle. Right. And we can really concentrate on building our relationships with them. And then we'll do another launch where we'll run a lot of ads, but we'll know in our minds that those launch leads that are coming in for the first time, they're probably not converting in this launch. They're converting in the next one. We're using this to warm it up. We're closing them in the next, and we're going to make our sales from organic people. So it's kind of a loaded question, but to answer your question, my experience has been that of all the things that we have seen, done, tried, and that's a lot, it still outperforms 10 to 1. It's absolutely still the thing, but a lot of changes have to be made to do it and do it well, which is why I'm recording the updated book, because I'm like, it's too much to put in a simple sentence. I need to be able to fully articulate how to adapt your strategy to the market of today, essentially.
Yeah. So I know everyone's asking in their mind right now, when is that book coming out? Because they want all the information. So if you have any information about when it's going to be,
I'm trying to get it done as soon as possible because I know people need it. In 2025, definitely in 2025.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, where can people connect with you? What's the best place to kind of connect with you and the services that you offer and just to be under your amazingness?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, always the Kelly Roach Show. I do 2 episodes a week. They're 20 minutes or less. I bring everything there: faith, family, business growth strategy, mindset, everything in between. So the Kelly Roach Show, and it's a commercial free experience. I think that's important. It's really pure value add.
Yeah.
And then Kelly Roach International, if you want to see just kind of the overview of the portfolio of companies that I run and what I do and how I can help you. And there's lots of different ways I can help anyone listening that is looking for strategic insight, mentorship, or growth in their business.
I love it. I love it. Well, one final thought or comment that you would have to all the mompreneurs that are listening today on this podcast. What's one final word of encouragement or something you would want to leave them with?
I mean, same thing I would have said 10 years ago. You can have, be, or do anything that you choose in life. You just have to be willing to do what it takes to make it happen and to just be discerning with your life and the glass balls in your life, which there are only few. Everybody feels like they have so many problems and challenges and opportunities and priorities, but there's only 3 to 5 glass balls in your life. So figure out what those are, hold them near and dear, and be willing to have imperfect action on everything else along the way.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. We could have talked for another 2 hours, and maybe when your book comes live, we'll have you back on and we can talk about
I'd
that.
love to. Yeah.
Dive in just to the live launch. But
Yeah,
thank you so
absolutely.
much. This was really an honor to have you on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, friends, I will catch you on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.